Hello, everyone! One day, a guy disobeys his boss and got into a big mess. Sounds corny. There is a catch, though. The boss is none other than God. The guy's an Archangel. And the mess is a literal apocalypse. You want to know how it ends? Los Angeles. Christmas Eve is coming up. Suddenly, right out of the sky, where the giant full moon shines, someone falls to the ground. This someone takes a knife and cuts himself. Later, he bursts into a weapons depot. Before he can get himself some guns, he visits a bathroom. The guy looks at his back, and there are giant gaping scars on both of his shoulder blades. He stitches them up, picks up a gun, goes outside, and immediately runs into a police car. Two cops run out of the car and order the person to surrender. The guy turns his back on the cops, as he is asked to. But then, as quick as a flash, he disarms one of the officers and points a gun at his head. The cop who was taken hostage asks his colleague to shoot, but something strange is happening to the latter. The possessed man shoots his partner and rushes at the guy, but the criminal is faster. He kills the monster instantly, gets into the police car, and drives away. Meanwhile, a young man named Jeep wakes up from a nightmare somewhere in New Mexico. He comes out of his trailer to get some air, and his roommate, Charlie, joins him. The girl is pregnant, but with someone else's baby, and the guy is madly in love with her, ready to accept the unborn baby as his own. The girl, however, has already decided that after its birth, the baby will be given to another family, and she, in turn, will try to start a new life. Next to the trailer is a diner, where Bob, the owner and Jeep's father, is trying to fix the TV. Percy is working with him, and the only customers at this hour are the Andersons, Sandra and Howard. With them is their daughter, Audrey, who, however, prefers to stay away from her parents and drives her mother crazy with provocative tricks.
Really, how can she go out in public looking like that?
I don't know.
A guy named Kyle passes by the diner. He got lost on his way to another town. Kyle decides to stop and approaches the pregnant Charlie, who works there as a waitress and is smoking outside on her break. She tells the stranger that he can use the phone inside. The guy enters the building, but Bob doesn't have time to respond to his request. The owner of the diner is being pestered by the Anderson couple, who've left their car to be repaired and can't wait for it to be fixed. It turns out that Bob gave the job of fixing the car to his son, Jeep, but the latter is not in a particular hurry. The father starts reprimanding the boy for spending all day worrying about a girl who doesn't even think about him.
Just feel like it's something I gotta do.
Bob asks that the car be taken care of as soon as possible and goes back to work. Just then, he discovers that the TV is broken again. The owner hits it as hard as he can, and finally the static disappears from the screen. Now, the inscription, "This is not a test," appears on the front of it out of the blue. The visitors and employees start getting a little nervous. Percy tries to turn on the radio, but it's full of white noise. No news can be heard through it. Kyle, meanwhile, is on the phone, but his call is cut off too. Another car pulls up in front of the diner. A nice-looking old woman gets out, goes inside, and orders a rare steak and water. The old woman is emphatically polite, talks to the Andersons, and introduces herself as Gladys. Sandra asks if she's seen anything suspicious. The answer seems very suspicious to the woman.
It'll all be over soon.
Charlie brings the old lady her order, and she starts to ask the waitress about her pregnancy. Gladys wonders how the girl is going to raise a baby without a man, and then suddenly tells her that the baby will have to burn. Charlie doesn't understand what the woman is talking about, but is shocked by her insolence. She tells the visitor to go to hell and then leaves for the kitchen. Gladys, meanwhile, gets even more upset. When Sandra tries to remark on her behavior, the old woman lashes out with a torrent of curses. It is Howard who's not able to hold back. He rises from his seat to demand an apology. But panic ensues in the diner. The old woman screams that everyone is going to die too, and then climbs up on the ceiling and crawls around like a spider. Bob grabs a gun and tries to shoot her, but it doesn't work. That's when Jeep finds himself face to face with the possessed. All he has to do is shoot. However, the old lady begins to tell the guy that he can't save a certain girl, and Jeep hesitates. He almost ends up becoming the old woman's second victim, but she's killed from behind by Kyle just in time. Sandra rushes to her bleeding husband, but this wound is so deep that she cannot deal with it alone. Howard is brought to the street by a group of people from the diner to take him to the hospital. It's an 80-mile drive, so Kyle drives as fast as he can. Then, the passengers see something strange in front of them. It looks like storm clouds or a sandstorm, but it turns out to be something else entirely. The group goes back to the diner. They examine the grandmother's corpse and are surprised that it's still warm. They take the body outside and see a police car approaching the building. A guy in plain clothes gets out of the car and Bob pulls a gun on him. He demands to see the stranger's teeth to make sure he doesn't look like the possessed old woman. After this, Bob calms down a bit, learns that the stranger's name is Michael, and apologizes for his behavior. He asks what the stranger is doing here.
You don't know, do you?
Don't know what?
Michael refuses to explain anything, as there's no time to talk. He only says that soon more creatures like the crazy old lady will come to the diner. The guy opens the trunk and distributes weapons to everyone present. The group barricades themselves inside the diner. The girls stay downstairs with the wounded Howard, while the men go up to the roof and keep watch. The boys try to learn who they're going to fight for Michael, but he's still silent. He only gives them directions as to how to use their weapons. Suddenly, they hear the sound of an ice cream truck. The ice cream vendor comes out of the trailer. He's possessed just like the old lady. At first, he just stares blankly ahead, but then hears Kyle whispering and immediately rushes towards him. However, killing him proves to not be that difficult. Alas, it's too soon to rejoice. A string of cars is already on the horizon. The guys start shooting them before they can get to the diner, but it's impossible to defeat them all, and some of the possessed get out. The men start shooting at the giant crowd of zombies, but someone manages to get to the first floor and takes the wounded Howard with them. Michael instantly appears nearby and scares the possessed people away. Sandra begs him to save her husband, but the man refuses. According to him, Howard is already gone. The siege ends, and everyone demands that Michael finally explain what's going on. He says that the first time God lost faith in humans, he sent a flood to Earth. The second time, this. The people outside are not possessed by demons, but by angels who are carrying out God's punishment. Michael himself was an archangel not a long time ago, but refused to follow the orders. Those present argue with the guy and say it's all nonsense.
I don't even believe in God.
Well, that's just fine. Bobby doesn't believe in you either.
Michael goes on to say that he's come to protect Charlie because the fate of mankind depends on her child. The girl laughs nervously and at first thinks it's some kind of joke, but the Archangel is deadly serious. She must give birth as soon as possible, or they could all die. The only problem is that Charlie's at least a month away from giving birth. In the meantime, they have to fend off the new attacks of the possessed, who will try to physically influence the diner's inhabitants in any way they can. After having a few beers, Bob is back on rooftop duty. Michael, meanwhile, is immersed in his own memories. In them, he argues with another Archangel, Gabriel. The latter begs his comrade to obey the order, but Michael calls for Gabriel to be merciful. Gabriel's adamant. He says that the war will take place whether Michael wants it or not. In the morning, Sandra wakes up to her husband's voice. He calls out to her, and she follows the voice. Looking out the window, the woman sees Howard hanging upside down on the cross, his body covered with boils and sores. Her husband begs Sandra to help her, and she rushes outside. Percy tries to stop her. At the very last moment, he shields her with his body, and Howard's blisters burst, gushing acid everywhere. Percy walks a few steps and then falls dead. Bob, having fallen asleep on duty, blames himself.
Let everybody down.
Michael and his assistants manage to find a working radio station. From there, they learn that the city's survivors are forming a militia. Charlie offers to drive to the nearest base, but the Archangel declares that it's too risky. Later, Charlie's smoking in the bathroom and confesses to Jeep that she was going to have an abortion, but something stopped her. Kyle and Audrey are on rooftop duty. They chat casually about their lives when suddenly the sign above them turns on, glowing. Something changes inside the diner too. The TV starts working. Kyle and Audrey see a car pull up to the diner and an ordinary man runs out of it. A line of other cars appear on the horizon again. Kyle sees them and decides that it's a trap, and that the sign was turned on purpose to distract the remaining survivors and kill them. Kyle yells for the strangers to get back in the car as soon as possible, but he's unable to save them. The possessed men have already got out of the vehicles and are carrying the child in their arms. Kyle opens fire to stop them, and Audrey asks him to stop. He might accidentally shoot the boy. Kyle can't hold back anymore and jumps down. He bravely fights off hordes of possessed men, picks up the baby in his arms, and carries him to the diner. Suddenly, Shocked by what's happened, Audrey also jumps off the roof and runs towards Kyle, who's already dead. The demon child blocks her path and tries to shoot him too, but she's all out of ammo. The girl jumps into a car and hides, but is immediately swarmed by the possessed. Inside the diner, after seeing everything going on in the street, Charlie begs Michael to save Audrey, as she is just a child. The Archangel refuses to take such a risk, so the girl threatens him to go outside herself. Michael takes her weapon and sets out to exterminate the possessed. He kills some of them with an assault rifle, and then sets fire to the car to scare them off. Now he has to break the glass, get Audrey out of the car, and get back to the diner before... Charlie sees smoke coming from Michael's coat and runs to the kitchen for water. But the possessed boy, who somehow managed to sneak into the house after all, is already there waiting for her. He has a knife in his hands and is advancing on the girl. She tries to defend herself with an iron tray and manages to buy some time. Michael's already here with his gun, but the boy is gone. The lights go out all over the house. The Archangel manages to track down the child by the bloody footprints on the ceiling, overpowers him in a duel, and finishes him off. Amidst the stress, Charlie goes into labor. While Audrey and Michael are delivering Charlie's baby, Bob and Jeep notice another horde of possessed men outside the diner. This time they don't run or attack, but slowly converge towards the entrance. Soon, Charlie's healthy son is born, and his screams make the possessed grab their heads. However, it's too early to relax. Michael says the baby must be taken away immediately. Although the possessed will now not be able to touch the baby or its companions, there is yet another problem. God has sent another Archangel to Earth, Gabriel, who's agreed to do what Michael could not. Charlie asks Audrey to hand the baby over to her, but Sandra intercepts it from her daughter's hands. She's heard Michael's words and decides that if she gives the baby to God's messenger, they'll all be saved. Charlie demands her son back, to which Sandra replies that the girl didn't even want to keep the baby in the first place. She walks with her to the back door, which suddenly opens up and... At the same second, Gabriel steps into the diner with giant wings and a heavy metal mace. Bob tries to fight the Archangel but is quickly wounded in the stomach. Jeep rushes to his father, but Michael stops him and demands that he get the child out of here immediately. Jeep obeys the order. He, Audrey, and Charlie walk out of the diner with the baby, and the possessed parts silently before them. Michael is left alone with Gabriel. His former companion tells him that the sacrifice he has made is unreasonable and that he is very bold to disobey his creator. Michael merely replies that there is another way, without violence. This does not convince Gabriel, and an exhausting battle ensues between them. Michael is wounded in the stomach, but still manages to disarm his opponent. Wrapping his arms around Gabriel's head from behind, the Archangel strangles him, but does not kill the man. He asks his opponent to come to his senses one last time. Michael dies as a mortal, but his spirit ascends to heaven. Gabriel heads for the exit, where Bob is still lying alive. He fires a lighter and ignites a gas cylinder. The explosion can't kill an Archangel, however. The best he can do is slow him down, so he soon catches up with the car after all. Jim shoots at the enemy, but he's almost inside the vehicle. Then the guy accelerates and brakes sharply. Gabriel is thrown off the car and it flips over. Jeep, Charlie, and the kid manage to get out unharmed, but Audrey is killed. The three survivors climb a nearby mountain when Gabriel quickly catches up with them. He demands the child, or he threatens to kill him and his mother. Jeep tries to stop the Archangel, but he knocks him to the ground and draws his weapon over him. Gabriel cannot believe that God has restored Michael's Archangel form. He explains that Gabriel gave the Creator what he asked for, and Michael, in turn, gave him what the Creator needed. Gabriel raises his hand to strike, but Michael precedes him. All he has to do is just make a move to end the treacherous Archangel's life forever. But he doesn't dare to kill. Ashamed, Gabriel disappears. Michael turns to Jeep and tells him that he is, in fact, the real protector of humanity, and always has been. The Archangel soars into the sky, leaving Charlie, Jeep, and the baby alone. They turn to face the valley and see that it is once again filled with light and warmth. Sometime later, they're driving in an unknown direction. Everything around them is the same again, joyful and familiar, with only one difference. Their trunk is now stuffed to the brim with guns. Leave us a comment with the horror stories that are on your list of favorites. We'll add it to our collection of ideas for future retellings. Also, give the video a like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are plenty of cool videos of stories in a variety of genres waiting for you.